Here's one that really hits me. How do I get value on a daily basis? Well, for me, what I do is you've heard me say the performance orientation, which would be another one of those things off to the side, just draw it out. Performance orientation. That's me. I'm all the time pushing hard, trying to accomplish this and this and this and this, so I can feel good about myself. Well, you can see how easy that would be to miss the fact that that's really connected to rejection back here at 4 and 6 and 12 and 14 and et cetera, unless somebody says that's what it is. And then you can start to analyze it a little bit, and then I was able to go, yeah, that is why I'm a performer. I'm trying to, because I felt this rejection, and I thought that if I did better, I would be more acceptable, and I would please the people that whose attention I'm trying to get and whose love I'm trying to get. And sometimes it was that I wanted love, and sometimes it was that I wanted attention. And sometimes it was that I wanted affirmation. And so in order to get the affirmation that God says we all need, I'm working for it. Even after I become a Christian, I carry that mindset into my Christianity, and I'm still working for the blessing of God, not knowing about the monster. I mean, the thing just goes on and on. And so to deal with a mindset means that's where we get to the heart, because unless we get our hearts involved, if you say, well, what's the answer? Well, part of the answer is we've got to get our heart involved, because this is going to mean a huge paradigm shift. Let's just say that I can flip a switch and all of our rejection is gone. There's no more effect, no more pain of it. All of a sudden, we're walking in, we're able to love ourselves. We're able to experience unconditional love. We feel the peace of God's love, and we don't have to work for any of that stuff anymore. It's just there. It requires a renewing of the mind. It requires an understanding that there's a monster and its name is rejection, and it has to be dealt with wisely. But it also requires just being able to relax and receive. Because if you want to drag a principle into this, then God created, if you look all across nature, you see that first we receive before we give out. So, and the evening and the morning were the first day. Okay, so we rest at night in order to have energy to go do what we do, serve others. When we're in our youth, there's a season of our being young where our teachers are pumping all this, learn to read, learn to do math, learn history. They're pumping all that into us in the hopes that by the time we hit 20 or 25 or somewhere in there, we're able to flip that and use that to begin to serve somebody else with what we now understand. You got a baby. A baby is a baby. Baby can't do anything but just receive. Until, you start to get old enough to pick out your own clothes. I mean, anywhere you look, you've got to receive enough life from somewhere to have it to give out. And so, if this is right, if there's a rejection thing happening that's been there, in varying degrees with each of us, then we're going to have to go through this season where we receive enough truth, life, healing, whatever you want to call it, to where it gets flipped and we start getting strong enough to be able to do what we want to do. We all want to serve other people, and we want to be the solution for people's problems. We want to use our spiritual gift, and we want to be free to go do that. But if we're stuck in rejection, there's going to have to be this season. God only knows how long that's going to be. I looked at this book 6 months ago and read it and thought, great book. Next, and I missed it because but he had me on the performance orientation. He had my attention there, and then when he tied that to rejection, that's when I had to go back 6 months later and say, sounds pretty simple. I don't see how that can really be, but and then it still slowly started to sink into me. Mindset. Then I was able to kind of slow down and absorb. Okay, do I really agree with what he's saying here? I don't know how much. Where are we at time-wise?
11:26.
I don't know how long to go. I never know the answer. Maybe what we could do is just stop, because I've got way more material, and just say, does anybody have a question? I don't want to put anybody on the spot. It's not like you have to ask questions. I just want to make sure that this is clear enough. Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll maybe go a little bit longer, and we'll just find a way to end it. He's got some more. He's got another list. Do you struggle with feeling far from God? Another signal. Do you find yourself trying to please God with your behavior? Do you feel ignored by friends, family, leaders? Are you easily hurt and offended by people? I'm skipping, I'm just picking them out. Do you repeatedly feel compelled to tell others about the accomplishments that you've achieved? Is your worth and value based on how well you do something? That to me, that's just so profound. Is my worth and my value based on how well I do something? Yeah, it is. I don't want to be there, but that's where I'm at. Do you struggle with addictive habits? Do you find yourself comparing yourself to others? Okay, enough on the list. All right. There are two main foundational issues that rejection seeks to corrode. The first is to prevent the unconditional love of Father God from being experienced. And here's the twist to that. Knowing about God's unconditional love is one thing, but experiencing it, that's a game changer. And you see, the rejection is, I wish I knew where to put God on that. Maybe underneath the monster and everywhere else underneath her, and her bait wouldn't get down to God because the monster's going to grab it. That's kind of how it is. So then we can't experience God on this level that we read about in this. But another eye-opener for me was if you start going back through the patriarchs. Okay, Abraham had to leave Babylon because he wasn't getting along with Nimrod, so the Jewish scribes say. So there was a problem with the relationship there over a good thing. Okay, so Abraham experienced some rejection. Moses The Pharaoh didn't want him to live. That's huge, rejection. Then he kills a guy and has to run off 40 years out in the desert by himself because he's probably blaming himself. So, self-rejection. Elijah deals with the problem, goes to Ahab and says, you brought a curse on Israel, no rain until I say so. Deals with it. And then in his success, Jezebel says, by tomorrow, I'm going to kill you. And what does Elijah do? Man, he heads for the desert. He's out of there. He does not know how to deal with that problem. And then when he gets where he's going, God says, Elijah, what are you doing here? It's like, who else? Daniel, lion's den. Nothing but, who can find anything wrong with Daniel's witness anywhere? But the other 120 counselors were jealous, so they get him tossed in the lion's den. Well, maybe his rejection season was only 10 hours long or whatever it was, but it would have been a healthy dose of, standing there in a lion's den going, I don't deserve this, and if it wasn't for those 120, I wouldn't be here. That's got to feel like some form of rejection, unless you're strong enough in your spirit to say, no, I don't receive this. I don't receive it. And that's what Jesus did. Now, here's one, before we quit, man, I got to go here. It's Mark, it's one of our verses, Mark 14 something, 26 maybe. There. Okay, now this is Jesus right before the cross. The focus is on the word Abba. Right before he's going to go do this hard thing, the hardest thing, and he even says, I don't want to do this if there's any way, but, and then he overrides it with his spirit. He says, but I will. Gets his soul out of the way and he comes in with it, but I will. But look at what he calls God. I'm not sure this is the only place in Scripture he does this, but at his hardest point, he's demonstrating by what he calls God. He says, Abba, Daddy, Dad, Father. He's very close to the Father right here, in his spirit. And that's a picture of where we need to be. That even when we're going to face something difficult, that relationship with God is right there. That's how he did it. That's how he was able to go to the cross. He was so deeply tied with his Father that he was getting some kind of strength from the Father. All right, we can quit. If you guys want to do communion, we've got it here, and I'm going to have this song. And so my suggestion before we take communion is that we try to move it to heart level. This, okay, because you're probably wondering, okay, so you expose the problem, it's rejection, or maybe you're saying, I'm not buying it. That's okay. I'm not here to force anything with people. I think eventually, if you look at it long enough, there will be some level of truth in this. That's what I believe. But there's no judgment or blame or anything here. But what I'm asking that we do is that we try to connect with our heart. And we try to say, We try to engage our heart instead of the mind. Because, yes, it's a mindset, but the heart is where we do business. And that's where if we can get our heart involved, then change can come. If we don't get our heart involved, then this will just be a set of words some Sunday morning, and there won't be any fruit. So what I'm asking is that we just do whatever you want to do to let God into your heart. Whatever that looks like to you, I'm asking that you let God in there.